that's a valid point for sure. But understanding God's love in what
He
way?
gave an example
In what way?
of
Because that's basically the question of the
these two people
four
from
first
Peter's
parts, you know?
church. They
Like,
both
what
got
did
off
Jesus
like
tell us about?
bad relationship, or they just got off the relationship. They basically took a year from no
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, I'm gonna work on myself. It
How
sounds cliche,
does
but
this
hey, I'm
relate to
gonna step
becoming
up.
the right
They
person?
actively make steps towards
Yeah.
improving themselves.
Or want me to
And
see
it is
like
actually
Yeah,
very
so you could join that group right there.
They
Wait,
each got
Mhm.
Trudy?
Yeah, Trudy.
What's the 1 year challenge and what's the purpose of it?
I don't know, 1 year. He said 1 day.
Actually,
Not purposely.
Don't do more.
It's free to work on yourself. It looks like you've done 5-year challenges.
We're like 30 years old.
30-year challenges.
are they asking five specific?
Yeah, there are five.
What are the
There are 5 things that the
you
authors
can work
suggest.
on
Oh,
during the 1
I
year
was like,
challenge?
I thought they were
You're like,
asking
whoa.
5 things. I was like,
One of them was like financial
Yeah,
debt.
that's actually one of
So
them.
debt causes a lot of
limited freedom. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the administrative
I
level.
forgot the other.
Says go back to church, because when you're at the right places, you usually meet the right people.
Yeah.
Address the past. If you have like unresolved issues, relational issues,
Yeah, like faith would be them.
No more denial.
5Fs, finances, faith, family.
break bad habits.
I guess I'll learn it.
I'm a fish out of water right now.
Set some boundaries.
That's
As
okay.
far as like when you meet the next person, your relationship, like set
Oh,
boundaries.
that could be a one too.
How far am I gonna get like sexual people? Or like physically.
Is that 5Fs?
Once you're in the relationship, it's too late. You're gonna like let him do whatever, or you're gonna have like too many, hormones like going through your body, so you're gonna like forget it. But you need to set boundaries before you get into the relationship.
And it becomes so much easier when the standard goes up. Because then you're not gonna waste 10 weeks with this guy if you knew from the first moment, oh, he does not respect
You guys are done?
you know. So then
Okay.
immediately next, like,
Okay, 30 seconds and then we'll start.
I'm not gonna get excuses for somebody who doesn't give me the basics from the beginning.
Okay, let's start. Any one of these that your group had a hard time with?
Number 4.
Number 4? Okay, what did Jesus tell us about love? Or I guess a better way to put it is, how is it different from the definition that the secular world usually give? Not all the time, but like a lot of the media we watch, how do they portray love? And then how does in the Bible portray love?
Love is to give.
What was that?
Selfless, be selfless and give.
No, not that.
Yeah, what is the difference? I forgot.
Do you guys remember?
Secular
I
versus
think
the
it's
Bible.
like action, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Right? So whenever the Bible talks about love, it's not talking about what? Feelings and emotions. But if you look at a lot of the media we watch, it's all about chemistry. As long as you have chemistry, that's love. And if you don't feel chemistry anymore, that's not love, and you should break up or get divorced. Okay? But whenever the Bible talks about love, it's always an action. Not that it diminishes feelings, right? But our society is like way like this on feelings, and then Bible corrects it. Okay?
It's like you can't have feelings living off of no action. That's why
You can't
feeling
have
dies.
feelings. Yeah.
You know, because if you start with that chemistry, how do you know if it's gonna last? It's by their actions. If the actions don't match the chemistry, then chemistry's gonna wind out.
Right.
It's gonna end up nose driving.
Right. Yeah. And then feeling always goes,
Yeah.
like this. So. Okay. And then how is it related to becoming the right person? Because the whole study was all about you not trying to find the perfect person, okay, but you becoming the right person that the person you're looking for is looking for. So how's it related? Do you guys remember? So we were going over 1 Corinthians 13, which is God is, love is patient, love is kind. What else? Okay. And then we did 3 things. We did kindness, patience, and record keeping. Okay, it does not record keep. And those are all verbs. Okay? And slow to anger is another one. Okay? And so that's kind of your to become list. Right? Because are you, the person you're looking for, whoever you want to date or marry, do you want that person to be patient? Absolutely, right? Then how about you? Are you a patient person? Okay. Do you want the future person to be kind? Absolutely. So how about you work on kindness? Okay, so that's what we were talking about. Okay. Any other? How about your group? Was there anything that you guys need? Yeah, or for you guys, any other?
Number 6.
Number 6 as well. What are the 5 things? I think this group did pretty well.
Notes.
Cheater.
Okay, so what?
Finance.
Finance. Okay, if you have debt, if you have some bad habits financially, then get rid of it. Faith. Okay.
Spiritual life.
Okay, spiritual life.
Unresolved issues or something.
Yeah. Baggages from the past. So spiritually, psychologically, financially, and then boundary. So sexually, and then
Finance. Oh, no. Break bad habits.
bad habits.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously, there's more. There's a lot more things. Obviously, you can work on. Just these are the 5 that the author suggested that you can actually work on during the 1-year break. Okay. Oh, sorry, 1-year challenge. I mean. All right. So let's go to discussion starters, and then I'll give you guys some time once again to. So within your groups, talk about that. Go for it.
Then you're free. But you're also.
What's the worst thing about being
Lonely.
I think it depends on how you take it. Some people are like, I'm fine with doing my own thing. Some people are like, oh man, I'm.
No, it's like touch star. You know?
Oh, you're
Like,
like,
nobody in my pocket is. I keep familiar with the whole
But then
family
again,
and
it's
my
like,
kids,
oh,
and now I'm
this
like
is-
by myself.
You do have friends you can reach out to, but it's
I'm sorry, Dad.
everybody says, oh, you have friends, you have friends. It's not the same.
And
They're not gonna tell you how,
I touch myself like, what
how
am
I feel about
I
living
thankful
in
for?
a public.
It's okay, I'm enjoying it because this is so funny because I just got out of a college. The fact that I jumped into like this is the first thing you're diving into, and it's all making sense. Like you need to pop your yeah, I need a long break. And I don't want that to be the best part
You
because
know, and like, and they're whatever the ex-husband or wife.
I just broke up, so
yeah.
Number 2. What?
yeah.
Are you serious?
No, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Be happy for me.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, but not sorry.
Sorry, but yeah.
So, yeah, we need to think about them all. The best thing is, yeah, you think about it. Take care of yourself. Or like, I don't know, you're gonna miss the, you know, the thing of being with
I
somebody.
would take the chance and if they start talking to me, I would talk back to them because some of them do look for other people to talk to them. And everybody, sometimes you get this whole like, let me talk to like other people. It's like a lot of them do get lonely. So for me, like when I went to work, if I ever get to a nursing home or somewhere where you talk to people and they want to talk to me for 2 hours, I'll sit down and talk to them for 2 to 3 hours. Even though my boss is like, "Well, I don't have any needs over here. I'll take care of it," and then just hang up the phone and just come back and talk to them.
What's your honest thoughts when you see old single girls?
I mean, like, I don't want to go to that.
It's me.
Okay, well, what's old?
Yeah, old
I
is
think
more
you're
like,
like,
what's older than me?
I think like, like the best year of your life.
Like my aunt, my mom's age. She's happy.
Yeah, quiet, she's really nice.
You know, you get what I'm saying? Like, some more.
But then again, some of it is by choice, as I've noticed, because there are people who are in their 30s, and I'm kind of just like,
She's
well, I'm
miserable.
oh,
Like,
well,
her company and
I'm not
whatnot.
gonna date anybody because
So when it's
I want to really
older
travel
people
on
that are like
the
suffering
world.
for
That's usually a lot of media is taking a lot of
and they're
people
trying.
is
I
just,
feel
oh,
like
you don't
they
even
might
have family, you
go
don't
to
need
effort.
kids, it's all about you, go
Find
on
the right
Instagram,
person,
go do whatever.
And if not, am I going to be the
That's pretty much where I start seeing people in their 30s and their 40s that are like
am I
single,
enjoy
and
life
like
and
they're
happy
making money
in
and
my
doing
life?
whatever they're
So it
doing.
depends where you live.
And if that's
Yeah,
your
I think you should be
cool,
happy
but when I think
and-
about it, I'm kind of just like, you know
It's
what?
the same
Probably
thing
my
that
train of thought is going. It's
from
like,
telling
okay,
people,
everybody
oh, you
goes
lost for
commerce.
now you
So,
can't.
but when you're talking like
No,
single
you're
people,
still gonna be
like,
happy,
we're married for
even
years
if
and
life didn't turn out how you
they're loved one deceased or something.
you thought you were
And
supposed to meet this
If
someone
you
and
see
do
another
this and
single
that.
person out there, it's gonna eventually get
They
married.
had other ideas. That's okay.
no.
So there's gonna be people out there that are like.
So I don't see it as a bad thing. I'm trying really
Yeah.
hard not to
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah. It's definitely.
Yeah, as a
Why? Why would you not want to see it as a bad
So
thing?
what do you
Because-
think? What's your honest thought about
Well,
these types of people?
That
it's
you do your
what's
thing.
right for me. You know?
I'll ask them.
So then I don't want to live in a state of anxiety where I don't like
I might be that.
Yeah.
that way.
If that's me, then I'm not going to be miserable.
Is it for
But
everyone?
that
Not saying that
stops
you
me
be
from
secular
thinking
a certain way if
that
you're
or
married,
vice versa.
but even for Christians, like, maybe there are some people that,
I think there's people who believe in not getting married so they can follow the will of God.
Do you guys get pressure from your church? Huh?
Yeah,
The next
people
question.
are, I'm not dating anybody. In case God calls me to
Yeah.
go,
Church.
be a missionary
Oh,
somewhere.
yeah.
She's still engaged.
very, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that way I'm not tied down to anybody and I don't feel bad about leaving anybody behind. You know,
I'm like,
type thing.
you're like,
How much pressure do you
Yeah.
get from church people, parents, adult friends about being
no,
single?
like 2 months? Like what?
Zero. I am zero C.
Oh, interesting. What's the give examples of what they say?
Not,
Nothing.
nothing.
Those people are like, we're all like, ah, she's been there for
But yeah, nothing about being single.
I did get pressure from like my mom.
Okay,
She would just
alright.
joke about like, so when you
No.
Girl thing then.
I get that from my dad.
you know, start a family.
Oh, there's always
I
that
saw this
side
little
parent.
kid one day, and I was like, oh man, alright. Be careful what you wish for,
Take
alright.
that to heart. Do you know what does that really bother you?
Interact or
Yeah.
something?
No, they ask
Yeah,
you.
oh,
It
yeah.
does if I
Oh,
ask my
yeah,
mom
yeah,
not to
yeah.
say
If
that.
not, can I hook you up with someone?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Why?
When you say that, do you
Oh,
expect
yeah.
it to
I've
be
never
every
happened before, but I did a
Ever?
session.
Yeah,
Where they come
if I
up to you
told
and be
you
like,
my
hey,
face,
so
like
you
I
dating?
don't want
This is
this,
what my daughter
like
looks
that.
like.
Yeah.
Then I want her to stop poking at it.
So
Because it's only a joke as long as I think it's funny, you know. So I didn't say that to her. I let
Oh,
it
you
go.
haven't said
Not
it.
with pressure.
But I thought about it because I was like,
Like, I
at
did.
some point,
Hey, I'm here though.
Or what about your parents?
I wonder if it's giving me pressure and I don't even acknowledge it because I'm just used to like saying this stuff. So I was like, should I tell her to cut it out?
What if all your friends got
Making me
married?
depressed.
You're a single guy.
I'd be fine.
I'm not so good at
Yeah, the thing is, when I was younger, I used to be a lot less active because,
Okay, 30 more seconds. 30 more seconds.
too long.
and once I realized that, you know, I was living my own life, my own way, my own pace, rather than comparing it to other people's lives and trying to live up to like a standard or like a level of what's acceptable. I mean, honestly, I'm more content with my own. I mean, my thing is big. Oh, hey, I'm falling behind.
Can you say that exactly to me?
I started going when I was like early 20s.
That Asian hair kind of is
Yeah, it depends on the family. I know Koreans have a
It became
different
like a big thing for me.
relationship
to the point
with
where,
their
like,
kids when they're
it
Latinos,
was,
you
it
know?
irked me so much when
Yeah,
someone
that's
introduced me to somebody.
But I mean,
And
just
it
because
was
you say
just
that
a
doesn't mean
regular
they're not gonna
introduction
talk
to
about it. They
somebody,
will talk about
and
it.
they would basically say something like, "Oh, this
I
is
cannot
If
do
you don't
that.
respect boundaries, be
married,"
there.
or like they would
But
tell me
I-
their
I
status
think I
basically
tell
because they
them
thought I was
how I
looking for
Mhm.
Instead of
something.
holding it
Like
and
that
acting
irked
like
me a
I'm
lot
okay
when
with
I
it.
was
Yeah.
like being introduced and stuff.
And of course, it's like a kid.
Okay, let's come back together. Come back together. Okay, so far for our series, there's 3 different sections. The first section we went over a couple weeks ago, which was giving you like a grand view of what marriage actually is. Because God's the one who actually made marriage in itself. And so we talked about a correct, pure, high view of marriage. And then after this, we're going over singleness. Okay, what's the best thing to do when you're single? Okay, and then the next part after today. So this is kind of like the end of like singleness stuff. Next week we're gonna go into sex. Okay.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, but today we're gonna go over singleness and how different people view singleness. Okay, because it's important to have a correct view or a very biblical view of singleness in itself. And it's very unique than other worldviews that we have. So we're going to be actually reading from this part. And after that, I'm going to put you right back into discussion. Okay? But I want you guys to, we're going to read this verse together. Are you bound to a wife? Do not seek to be free. Okay? Are you free from a wife? Do not seek a wife. So basically, are you married? Don't get divorced. Are you single? Don't get married. But if you do marry, you have not sinned. And if betrothed woman marries, she has not sinned. Yet those who marry will have worldly troubles, and I would spare you of that. Sounds like a single person speaking.
Sounds like a warning.
This is what I mean, brothers, and he tells the reason why he says this. This is what I mean, brothers. The appointed time has grown very short. For from now on, let those who have wives live as though they have none, and those who mourn as though they were not mourning, and those who rejoice as though they were not rejoicing, and those who buy as though they have no goods, and those who deal with the world as though they have no dealings with it. For the present form of this world is passing away. Okay? So first question is, what do you think, Paul who's writing this, okay, what do you think his main point is? Okay? Second part, do you think Paul's stance on marriage is contradicting to what we've been talking about? And if you don't remember, then just ignore the second question. Okay? Well, you guys are back to your groups once again. Go for it.
Yeah, so that's what I think. It's like after marriage. You understand the things, what's your thought?
I think it would kind of apply to both.
But if you marry, you have not sinned.
Whoa, so the
That's one of the first things you do for the most part. Yeah.
Why people would think they were sinning? If they get married all
You can have a baby out of it.
Like he's saying that because
Yeah.
are you free from a wife? Do not seek a wife. No, but then he's just justifying like, oh, but if you're already married, you don't have a wife.
I think it's yeah, but again, it's obvious.
Like he's trying to be obvious. I think he's like, don't like the world doesn't revolve around like everything.
And it's Paul. He can give his opinion. And this is giving his opinion that what is the right thing inspires him. Like saying like, oh, tell people to not get married and stuff. Like, this is opinion people like observing marriages and relationships. And of course, God is inspiring everybody. So
All right, 30 more seconds.
Because all that whole paragraph is contradicting. Isn't he basically saying this world is coming to an end? Don't get tired of it.
Yeah, don't do that.
Like if you everything it's all contradictory.
Like, don't waste your time.
You just said like if you have a wife, leave your wife, or don't leave her. No, but he says if you have a wife, pretend you don't have a wife. And I'm like, what?
The main point is not like actually making your time.
Don't care so much about it. Yeah. There's way more important things going on.
All right, so today we'll talk about what Paul is actually saying. Yeah? And then we're going to see also contrasting views of this as well. The time is short. Tracy?
Here we see that behind the time is short phrase is a sophisticated view of history. The prophet of the Old Testament preaches that the Messiah would end the old rule, order, and then begin the new age of God's kingdom, in which all things would be put right and death and decay banished.
Okay. So, easy way to understand the Bible is perfect world. Sin comes into the world. And because of that, there's chaos, death, and all of these negative things happening in this world, right? And then the end of the Bible is basically God restoring it back to the original state. He's all about restoration. Okay, so far so good. And then there's this Messiah figure that will come and basically restore all of these things. Richard, if you could read the next one.
When Jesus came, he announced that he was Messiah, but to everyone's surprise, he did not ascend the throne. Instead, he went to a cross. He did not come to bring judgment, but to bear it. What did this mean? It meant that Jesus did bring the kingdom of God, and yet this present world is not over. We still live in a world of decay, disease, and death. This is what is called the overlap of ages. The old order is still here, though it is doomed and living on borrowed time. It is passing away.
Okay, so this guy named Jewish young man comes. He says, I'm the Messiah. And this is actually one of the reasons, I told you guys about this when we did our study during Sabbath school. This is one of the reasons why a lot of Jewish people reject Jesus as the Messiah. Because they believe the Messiah, if the Messiah comes, there should be no more death. There should be no more decay. Jesus already came, but there is still decay. Okay? But what Paul is explaining, okay, is that we misunderstood the Old Testament. Okay? So basically, Jesus started the new kingdom. He's starting the restoration process, but we're still in the middle of that. Does that make sense? So the old things, it's still going away, and the new things, we are starting to see it, but still we're in the middle process of that. Okay? But the Jewish people, they thought, oh, as soon as the Messiah comes, like it's going to be 100% restored right away. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. But this is just telling us, Paul is telling us that it's slowly coming. And that's what he means by the time is short. Does that make sense? Okay. Any clarifications, questions? Okay, let's keep going. Josh.
What are the implications of this? On the one hand, it means that all the social and material concerns of this world still exist. The world goes on and we live in it. We must take thought for tomorrow. Yet our assurance about God's future world transforms our attitudes toward all our earthly activities. We should be glad of success, but not overly glad, and saddened by failure, but not too downcast, because our true joy in the future is guaranteed by God.
Okay, so we want to avoid two extremes, and this is the two extremes that people get into. Okay, within Christianity, the extreme would be, I don't care about tomorrow, all that stuff, because Jesus is coming. So I'm just going to go into the forest and I'm just going to wait for that and just not care at all about what's going on here. Okay, but the other extreme, the secular worldview, is there is no future, it's YOLO. There's nothing coming, so you just enjoy the heck out of it. And Paul is actually saying we need to meet in the middle. And then the term is, we are in this world, but we're not of this world. And that's the term that Christians use. And that's what he's basically saying. We're still here, and yet this is not everything. Okay? The emphasis is not like I have to do everything here. If I fail here, then it's game over. No, there's still hope. There's something else still coming. Okay, so again, we're in this overlap period. That's what he's continuing to talk about. Okay, let's keep going. Luis?
What does this mean for our attitude towards marriage and family? Paul says it means that both being married and not being married are good conditions to be in. We should be neither overly elated by getting married nor overly disappointed by not being so. Because Christ is the only spouse that can truly fulfill us, and God's family the only family that will truly embrace and satisfy us. With this background, we can better understand how radical Paul's statements are regarding singleness and marriage.
Okay, so again, that's what Paul's saying when it comes to relationships. He's basically not taking the extreme views where you go, don't marry at all. Okay, nor the secular worldview, which is marriage is everything, relationship is everything. Okay, that's the only thing that's going to give you purpose, identity in life. And he's saying, no. Okay, we have to understand. Okay, that's not the end of it. Okay, so let's keep going. Grace.
Stanley Hurwitz argues that Christianity was the very first religion that held up single adulthood as a viable way of life. Nearly all ancient religions and cultures made an absolute value of the family and of the bearing of children. There was no honor without family honor. There was no real lasting significance or legacy without leaving heirs. The main hope for the future then was to have children.
And that's why it was so important, right? Even like this is like a couple hundred years ago. Okay, even probably some of our grandparents' probably generation, like that's not a choice. Like you gotta get married. Especially like women, it's like you gotta get married and you gotta have kids. Right? That's everything. Okay? And then the reason is because again, it's like that was the whole purpose. It was like family honor. Okay? Obviously, it's a little bit different for us now because we're a lot more individualistic, and we're going to talk about how it's a little bit different for us, but let's keep going on this.
Christianity's founder, Jesus Christ, and leading theologian Paul were both single their entire lives. Single adults cannot be seen as somehow less fully formed or realized human beings than married persons.
Okay, because the ancient religion or the cultures, they made family the most important thing. So you must be married. If you're not married, then you're still a little kid. Okay, and that's why I'm not saying all of it, but some like church members or older people, they go, when are you going to get married? Okay? Like you're not fully formed. Like once you get married and have kids, have a family for your own, then you're treated as an adult. Does that make sense? Okay, it comes from this ancient view or the traditional view of viewing it. Does that make sense? All right. But right here, Jesus Christ and Paul, they were both single their whole life. But no one goes, oh, they were immature. Or no one goes, oh, they're not fully formed adults. Does that make sense? All right, let's keep going. Lizzie?
Paul's assessment in 1 Corinthians 7 is that singleness is a good condition blessed by revolutionary attitude. Oops. Oh my gosh.
Nice.
But it makes sense. It's a good condition blessed by God, not revolutionary attitude. And in many circumstances, it is actually better than marriage. What? As a result of this revolutionary attitude, the early church did not pressure people to marry and institutionally supported poor widows, so they did not have to remarry, whereas the pagan widows faced great social pressure. And Augustus even had widows fined.
Okay. So again, you have to understand the traditional.
Let me see, I'll find you. Imagine living like that.
But that was what it was, right? If you're a woman, okay, or if you're a man, okay, the end goal is marriage. You must be married. If you want to be an adult, that's part of it. Like for example, when we look at kids, what do? After a certain age, you have to what? Go to school. We expect that. Okay? And so during the traditional time, it's like, of course you have to get married. Of course you have to have kids. Does that make sense? But Christianity actually gave resources for widows and single people not to be pressured into marriage. Why? Because Christianity has a totally different worldview. Does that make sense? Because again, the whole overlapping thing. Marriage is not everything. It's important, it's not everything. It's not the most important thing in your life. Okay, let's keep going.
Why did the early church have this attitude? The Christian gospel and hope of the future kingdom de-idolized marriage. Having children was the main way to achieve significance for an adult, since children would remember you. He also gave you security, since they would care for you.
Okay, so significance, security, identity. These are the things that come within family for them. Trudy, did you read? Did we skip you?
No, sure.
Oh, you did read. Okay. Widows or single, okay. So why does the early church have this attitude? Widows or single Christians were bearing testimony that God, not family, was their hope. Okay, God would guarantee their future. So there's hope right there. First, by giving them their truest family, which is the church. So David never lacked for brothers and sisters, fathers and mothers in Christ. So there's always still community, although it's not like family. But ultimately, Christians' inheritance is nothing less than a fullness of kingdom of God in the new heavens and new earth. So the basic idea is for the traditional view, you had to get married. You had to have kids. Or you're a failure, basically. Okay? Or you're going to get fined. Okay? So because their concept is marriage is everything. It's without it, you won't have identity. You won't have hope. You won't have security. But Christianity debunks all of that. Because even without it, there's actually church who can still give you security, okay, who can still give you love, who can still give you identity. And same thing with God as well. Does that make sense? So you don't have to lean so much on marriage itself. Let's keep going. Tracy.
The Christian church in the West unfortunately does not seem to have maintained its grasp on the goodness of singleness. Instead, it has labeled it Plan B for the Christian life. H. Brown lists a number of common ways that Christian churches try to explain singleness. 1. As soon as you're satisfied with God alone, He'll bring someone special into your life. 2. As a single, you can commit yourself wholeheartedly to the Lord's work. 3. Before you can marry someone, the Lord has to make you someone wonderful.
Okay, so again, it's this concept of like, oh, the reason why you're single right now, the reason why you're not married, it's because, again, like, God knows you're not ready yet. It's this idea of like, you're not complete without marriage. Okay, but they're just saying the same thing the traditional people said. They're just saying it in a Christian term or spiritual term now. Okay, let's keep going.
Beneath these statements is the premise that single life is a state of deprivation for people who are not yet fully formed enough for marriage. Brown responds along the lines of Paul. I am not single because I am too spiritually unstable to possibly deserve a husband, nor because I am too spiritually mature to possibly need one. I am single because God is so abundantly good to me, because this is His best for me. Christianity affirmed the goodness of single life as no other faith or worldview ever has. Okay, so once again, Christianity, it breaks the shackle, okay, of like, I need to, like, marriage is everything. It's the most important thing. And without marriage, I'm going to be a loser, or I'm incomplete, or these kind of negative ideas about yourself. There's still an identity, security, affection that you can still get by being a Christian with God and with the church as well. Let's keep going. Josh.
What about today? The traditional thought is still strong in the non-Western traditional cultures, whereas the Western culture tempts us to put our hope in apocalyptic romance, in finding complete spiritual and emotional fulfillment in the perfect mate.
Okay, so it's a little bit different for us. Okay, we're not like, oh yeah, like you need to get married. Right? We're not like that. But you should be looking for romance. Okay, you should be constantly seeking. Okay, it doesn't have to be marriage necessarily, but you should be dating around. You should be hooking up. Okay, and if you want to be sexually active, then fine, whatever. As long as you're in this romance cycle, as long as you're seeking somebody. Does that make sense? So this idea of like you gotta get security, identity from a relationship itself. If someone came up to you and said, I just want to be single, or I don't care about relationship, again, that's kind of weird. Because everything we watch, it's all surrounded by romance and sex. Okay, a lot of the media we watch. Let's keep going. Louis, yes.
Is that what matters in life is finding romance and marriage. Everything else is prologue and afterward. So both traditional and Western cultures can make singleness seem like a grim and subhuman condition.
Okay, so once again, It's like before marriage, after marriage. When I was single, I was like this. And when I'm married, now I'm like this. Okay? Imperfect, now perfect. Immature, now mature. That's kind of how a lot of people, again, maybe they don't say it, nobody says these things, but a lot of us, I think, subconsciously think this way. Or at least, not maybe marriage, but I gotta be like dating and looking. Let's continue to go on.
As we have studied before, Ephesians 5 tells us that marriage is not ultimately about sex or social stability or personal fulfillment. Marriage was created to be a reflection on the human level of our ultimate love relationship and union with the Lord. This high view of marriage tells us that marriage, therefore, is penultimate. It points us to the real marriage that our souls need and the real family our hearts were made for.
Oh, so if you understand this, then you basically understand the whole message of what Paul was trying to get at, and Christian marriage and Christian singleness. Okay, if you understand this paragraph. Okay, so number one, you have to understand that marriage is not the ultimate thing. It's penultimate. Do you guys know what penultimate means? Some people think before the last thing, right before the ultimate. Okay, so it's basically saying marriage is not the ultimate thing in your life. God is. Okay, but marriage is a beautiful thing because it gives you a glimpse of God's love. Of course, we talked about how we view marriage, the secular worldview that we live in. It's not very good picture of God's love. Like one of them is like, for example, for us, a lot of us, it's all about sexual and physical compatibility, and somebody who never changes us. Remember we talked about stuff like that, and if we find the perfect person, then I need to marry that person, and if this person changes, then I need to leave that person. But we talked about how that's not a good concept of Christian marriage, right? Because when God loved us, did he love us like that? Did he go, oh, I'm going to look for Lysia. Oh, Lysia is perfect. Louis is perfect. Oh, you guys are not perfect, so I'm not going to love you guys. I'm only going to love the perfect people. He doesn't do that, right? He actually comes and seeks broken people. Okay? So it gives you, marriage is not about just be perfect, find the perfect person, love the perfect person, and be with the perfect person. And if that perfect person messes up, then I'm leaving him. Or her. Okay? But it gives you a glimpse of, I could forgive. I could be patient. Okay? So it gives you a glimpse of what God's love can be. Okay, there's a lot of other things within it. All right. So let's keep going.
If singles learn to rest in and rejoice in their marriage to Christ, that means they will be able to handle single life without a devastating sense of being unfulfilled and uninformed. And they might as well tackle the spiritual project right away. Why? Because the same idolatry of marriage that is distorting their single lives will eventually distort their married lives if they find a partner. So there's no reason to wait. Demote marriage and family in your heart, put God first, and begin to enjoy the goodness of single life.
Okay, so it's basically saying if you're not able to, as a Christian, if you're not able to understand God's love, right, find hope and security, okay, but if you're looking for your hope and security in a marriage or a person, then that relationship itself is going to be really toxic. Because you're leaning way too hard on things that only God can fulfill, right? And it's unfair because no human being could bear that. It's way too much, okay? Because human beings, we're all very important. Relationship is very important, but we're not supposed to bear all of the weight. Does that make sense? So if somebody gets married to me and says, you're my ultimate identity, or you're my ultimate security, okay? And without you, everything will fall apart. That's a lot. Okay, so what it's basically saying is, don't say, once I get married, I'm gonna put marriage in the proper place, and then that time after I get married, then God, can you be the ultimate thing in my life? No, you can work on it right now as a single person, okay? Or even as a married person, of course, we can still work on it. Question?
No, I just wanted to say something that kind of came to me a little bit. I think it's interesting because every society really promotes marriage though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Absolutely.
Like, you get a bigger tax break if you're married.
Yes.
You can claim more stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, and ultimately, like, everything is like, I once told this Kevin, I was like, I don't want you to die before me because I feel like there's so much like we have so much like resting on each other.
Right.
And I don't want to go through life without you.
Right.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
so beautiful.
But it's like saying it's not good.
Yeah.
Because like I'm putting too much like burden on someone else that is ultimately a human.
Right. But there is proper burden, right? It's not. I'm not saying like they're totally. We're not saying like totally detached. But there are certain things that we can expect. So it's just more about having right expectations, right? And like especially like the big things like identity, ultimate security, ultimate identity, right? So of course you should be anybody should be devastated if their wife or husband that they love died. Of course, like if you're not devastated, then most likely that's a negative sign too. But if you're like, my life cannot go on, like my whole purpose in life is totally destroyed now, then you could see that has become your idol, right? All right, very good. Let's keep going and then we'll finish. Who read last? Okay, go for it.
How can we claim that long-term singleness is a good condition in light of the previous argument that males and females are in some ways incomplete without the other? The answer is the same. It has to do again with our hope in Christ and our experience of Christian community.
Okay, let's keep going.
Christian hope turns the church into something far more profound than a club or interest organization. This means that single people within a strong Christian community can experience much of the unique enrichment of cross-gender relationships within a family, particularly the sibling relationships between brothers and sisters.
So it's basically saying none of us were made to be alone. Okay, so again, we talked about this, but there's people extreme who says, I don't care about people, or I don't need people. I only need God. But that's not biblical either. Okay, because when God created us, and then Adam was in a perfect place, but God still says it is not good for you to be alone. And then he gave Eve. Okay, does that make sense? So again, we're not saying God is like literally like you only need God and you don't need human beings. We're not saying that either. Okay, there is element of relationships that we still need, and you can find that without necessarily marriage within the Christian church community itself. Does that make sense? Let's keep going. Of course, it is less intense than in marriage, the relationship within like community, and yet more corporate experience is not a poor second to marriage, since in marriage you are to put together with just one member of the opposite sex. Marriage does and should somewhat limit the extent of friendships that you have with others in the opposite sex. In Christian community, however, singles can have a greater range of friendship among both sexes. Okay, so it's basically saying there's pros and cons about what you can actually receive within a marriage, right? It's marriage, but it's just one person that you get really, really close with. Okay. And then in the Christian, like if you don't get married and if you want to just remain single, okay, then obviously you can't get that intimate, like really, really deep relationship that you can within a marriage, but you can have a very good relationship with various people who can really shape you and help you as well. Okay. Okay, any clarifications or questions?
I feel like you can really pervert this into like it just got me thinking about, like those cults
Sure.
that have multiple marriages and like one guy.
No. Yeah. We're not talking. Yeah, this is not talking about marriage.
No,
Like,
I
it's
was
like-
thinking the same thing.
I was
Yeah,
like-
but
I was
no.
like, I don't know. But
I mean, this could be spun off in some
It's just talking about that there's still resources within community, so you don't have to be alone. Because the problem is, if I don't get married, then do I have to be myself and be alone forever? And it's basically saying there's still church, which is the community, who can, again, pros and cons to it. Yeah. But this is obviously not saying within the church, don't get married and just date whoever. It's not talking about that whatsoever. Right. Okay. Any other questions, clarifications? So again, the main point is the traditional way of looking at it and the Western way, which is today the secular Western way of looking at singleness, is you're an incomplete person and you need to get married. You need to be in a relationship. And Christianity actually breaks that and says there's still goodness that can come, okay, even if I'm single. I don't need to get married. Of course, it's a gift that God has still given to us, but it's not the ultimate thing. God is the ultimate thing. Okay, that's the basic idea of today's lesson. Okay.